Hello, hello, hello. We are back with another episode of Honey, It's Yours. As always, I am Danae.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Rian.
And I'm Sarah.
And we have two special guests with us today for this episode. Introduce yourselves from my left to my right.
I'm Erica. I'm not plugging in my Instagram, though, but I'm Erica.
And I'm Kristen. I'm also not plugging my Instagram. Kristen, I'm here.
And we have these two beautiful guests here to join us to talk about a very important topic. I feel like it is troubling our peoples, our sisters. Go ahead, Rian, jump it off.
Oh, okay. So why are you guys here? Because right now, because y'all just said your names. Like, who are you guys to us?
Right.
And what do you bring to us today to share with people?
Okay, so I'm Kristen. I am an unofficial third-year medical student. So I'm here today because we're talking about healthcare and how it affects our community as Black women in the health field.
Yes. Amen. And I'm Erica, like I said. I'm a graduate student nurse, I guess. I'm just currently studying to get my license. But I did the RN track, so yeah. That's what she said. Talking about the healthcare.
Yes. I guess to jump off the topic. So as a Black woman studying in the medical industry, what was the hardest, or what is the hardest, because you guys are still in your journey of becoming part of this industry? What is the hardest thing about that? I know that's a loaded question, but it's like, this is like, what is one thing? Okay, so in school, like, what was the hardest thing to be a part of?
Well, I guess I would say that when I think about healthcare, kind of being able to see it from a different perspective and realizing how much information we truly don't know when you're learning about healthcare versus when you're just a patient. So I think as a medical student, maybe the veil being lifted in a way, it was just like, oh my God, I can understand why I'm needed now, because you kind of have to do a lot more educating and yourself, but mostly so that you can educate others. So I think just the sheer amounts of information that I've learned in just 2 years of school and realizing the depth of it, that's not necessarily easy to translate to the patient side of things. I think that's probably the hardest thing that I've had to learn or understand.
Yeah, I definitely agree when it comes to that. It's a lot of knowledge, even though we're kind of like two different tracks. But it's still a lot of knowledge that you're gaining in like a short period of time. Mine's only 2 years. And 2 years is really, it sounds like a long time, but it's really nothing. And the amount of stuff that you have to learn. And also for me, it's more like just really seeing how the healthcare system is and how really messed up it is. Like, once you're really in it, like doing clinical rotations for me, I don't know if doctors do.
Yes, we do. What happens?
But for me, is just when I first walked into it, I was just like kind of like shocked of how bad it is. And I'm just like, wow, I'm putting myself into something really like, you know, I could turn back now if I want to, type of stuff. But it's also, I feel like it's a lot of people in it there for the money. And when you in school and you're doing clinical rotations, when you really see that, and it's kind of disheartening because it's kind of like this is human lives, human people. Right. And so it kind of also pushed me to also like, okay, I belong here because I'm not in it for the money. Right. You know what I'm saying? I want to do this to actually help people out there who's sick and many other things. Yeah, who's in need. So, yeah.
So you mentioned you didn't realize how bad it was. Like, what part of it was bad? Was it like the learning experience? Was it the practical stuff? Was it the pay? Like, what about it kind of open your eyes to that?
Well, for me, nursing school for me actually wasn't that bad. Like, I didn't struggle as much as I thought I would. When I first told people that I was going to nursing school, the first thing they told me, like, oh wow, you're gonna struggle. It's gonna be one of the hardest things you're ever gonna do. And watching other people around me struggle, I was just kind of like, so what are y'all struggling for? Like, this is not that bad. The only thing I've been struggling for right now is just taking the NCLEX, RN. But the actual school for me wasn't that bad. As for clinical rotations, that was more difficult for me. A lot of the nurses out there who's actually in the field don't want to teach to the nurses. And I feel like that's one of the big problems, because then you go into it learning actually nothing. Because they all say the same thing. Oh, I'm busy. I have too many patients, all that stuff. Which I understand, but at the same time, how are we supposed to learn and gain experience if nobody want to teach us? So then when we actually do start working, we're going to it blind. We're learning with the patients, which is kind of terrible because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then imagine you're going in, you don't know what's going on either. So both two people is clueless as to what is going on. And you gotta give them medication. You gotta do everything. It's kind of like, damn, like, you know. So it's more of
because as a patient.
And you know what's crazy? As like a frequent patient, well, all right, not frequent, but like as a patient, it's been like, so what do you normally take when you come to the doctor? And it's like, I feel like that's y'all supposed to know that based on what they told you. Sure, like y'all supposed to come with that information.
Yeah. However, though, when you look at it, and I think kind of piggybacking off what you said, it's like it's a messed up system in a way that even for the patient to be thinking that and not you wanting to talk to me, because really we're here for you. So it's just like, you know, yeah, I can look at your file and I probably did and I probably know what you're taking, but I want to understand if you know what you're taking and how you're taking it so that I can better help you, you know. So I think that's where you get more of the relationship and the rapport that you want to build and that we desire to build. And I think also piggybacking off of the question you said where what is bad about it. I could differ a little bit. Medical school is hard and I struggled a little bit. And I think for me going into medical school, what it was is just that I had to learn to study. For those students out there that just made it through the studies in school and like going into medical school and having to learn to like relearn, how do I learn? And taking in, like we said, a sheer amount of information at a time, it's just like, it was just overwhelming. And I really had to put a lot of effort into figuring out, okay, do I learn visually? Do I like videos? Do I like to read? Like, what is it? And sometimes you don't even have the time to do that. So I'm just like, I'm gonna do everything to hopefully get this information in. And then bringing it to the outside world where we interact with you guys, I think it's more so like, as a healthcare worker, not going into it for the money initially, right? You kind of see how our innocent approach to we just want to help people is tainted because the system just doesn't allow you to just help people. Money plays a part, insurance plays a part, like how you interact with different people plays a part, different communities and what they have access to plays a part. So it's just like, you take this innocent baby and then you throw it out just like, yeah, it's a whole adult. Like, it's just terrible when you get out there. So I think that's like the contrasting with things. We go in so innocently, ready to just be a part of the community and help you guys. But there's so many factors that play a part that kind of fight against us doing our job.
It changes how you value what you want to do so bad.
And then going back to like the sheer amount of information that you guys have to learn, you in 2 years to just then take your board licensing and then go right into the field, and I don't even know how many years doctors have to do, and then the residency. But the amount of information, like in you studying all this information, have you guys found any disparities in that information where it's like when you finally go and interact with the communities that are having these marginalized communities, to say you find it hard to help them because you're so innocent, you want to help, but then you have all these factors plus the information. Is there anything in the information where you learned where it's like, I don't even know how to help?
I think that when you look at the information, and then you look at the community that you're trying to help, we tend to it's human nature to kind of like pair this type of person is more likely to have this disease, or so that's how we learn. Like, we learn epidemiology. We learned that like a black woman in this age range might have this disease, right? And you might learn like kids have this thing. So I think that kind of takes away some of the question of how do I help. However, disease does not look the same for every individual that you attach it to. So I think then you take a lot of like critical thinking and interacting with your patient to learn like how to approach what they need. And that part is not necessarily something that you can totally teach. You have to, we practice, we have practice interactions with different types of people, but until you're like in the position, I'm like, some diseases we might never see. And some diseases you see just like, oh my God, like I'm finally seeing something like this and it makes sense. So yeah, there's disparity is always there. And for example, I would say like as dermatology, we look at dermatology. For me, I struggle with dermatology because we look at like how something looks on the skin for a white person, and a lot of the books and representation does not have how it looks for an African American. So you're just like, okay, I don't understand how this disease would present for this person. So that is important, right? Because you now get a patient who comes to you and they're like, hey doc, I have this thing on my skin. And if you're not taught that in school, now it's up to you to do more work, more research to see, and to probably influence the data to have information that, represents us. So I think that, you play a thin line. They teach us the epidemiology, but you got to do some work. So.
But even just going on to that too, like as for nurses, it's kind of hard to learn from the patient. Like right now, it's a whole big thing where like the nurse to patient ratio is terrible. One nurse can have like 15 patients. How are you learning from 15 different patients who have 15 different things? And then depending on what they have, one can be more severe than the other. So you don't have that much time to spend with one patient because the other one is bleeding out. This other one is in cardiac arrest or whatever the case may be. So it makes it even harder to even just learn your patient because you're constantly just running. So the time that you really want to put into your patient, you really can't.
Right.
You really can't.
Because I feel like when you say like you have to spend the time to learn your patient and then go back and learn, when do you really have the time to go back and learn? Because if you have 15 other patients, or you have one patient that's coding, and you got to run here, and then you forget, hey, this person came in with a skin looks like a rash,
and I need to go look it up. I mean, we have resources that we can use, but I think that maybe even charting, that's why you find, like, I think doctors and nurses, they might be at work much longer than they want to be on certain days because it's just like, you want to take the time to, yes, put all the key information in and do what you have to do with the patient, but there's probably something that you may have to explain to a resident or, explain to a doctor. My colleague here is a nurse, and like there's things that she may have to explain to me as a doctor to kind of get a full picture of what's going on with the patient. So you take more time to kind of, put yourself in a position where, okay, I can understand some information, and that time cuts into your personal time. Like you spend that time at work, at a computer, or at home looking up to date, trying to find out what's going on with the patient. Yeah.
I have a question actually, because I know you mentioned you were studying to be a doctor, but what kind of doctor do you want to be?
So I actually do not know what type of doctor I want to be. Crazy? I don't think it's crazy. I think a lot of people don't understand the process that we go through. And yes, it's very common for someone to go and say like, hey, I really want to do this. But it's very also common for people to go and say they want to do something and then they just completely change their mind. I haven't started my clinical rotations yet, so I kind of want to see what that looks like to make a determination. But based on what I've done well in school, I did really well in neurology. I like the brain, I guess. And I did really well in what would be like your GYN, OBGYN course. So I do realize that there's a disparity in that area too. So it's something that I'm looking at, and I really love kids. So pediatrics initially was my main goal, but we still open.
Are there specific types of nurses, or is it just one nurse?
Yeah, nursing can actually just go like pretty much anywhere. There's many different routes you can take. Me personally, I would like to do maternity, not pediatrics. The babies and then women giving birth, or women that give stillbirth, or who do abortions, all that stuff. Mainly because I chose this after I took my maternity course. I had to do an assignment, just picking out any topic and doing a research paper about it, and I chose to do it on the epidemic of a lot of black women dying, giving childbirth, because they're not just because of their race, pretty much, they're not as attentive to black women versus every other race. So there's a lot more black women dying, giving birth to children, versus every other race, from like many things to where, like, for instance, a woman can be complaining they're in pain or they don't feel good, and they tell them, well, yeah, you just gave birth, you're not going to feel good. The whole time they're just bleeding out on the table, and by the time they catch it's too late. So after learning that, I was just like, I would like to be more of that nurse that's there beside you, that's more attentive, because I'm a black woman myself. I would hate for that to happen to me or anybody else that I would know. So yeah, maternity is my...
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Speaking on this OBGYN track, I mean, y'all more so saying like you saying like after, but I definitely would agree that there is a need for what is that GYN? So that's not the which part is the OB and which part is the GYN?
So obstetrics and gynecology. Yeah. So it's all together basically.
All right, which part I see before I'm pregnant?
GYN.
Yeah.
That. We need more of those. I first of all, the fact that I'm even having to ask this question and I've been going to the OBGYN.
But either way, it's like it's all intertwined. And even before, I'm sorry to cut you off, but even before you have a baby, that we're talking about reproductive health, that's what you go to. So that's what it is.
I think we need more of those because... No, okay, so
we need you.
I got really close to my OBGYN because... You know, after a tumultuous teenage years, and like my first experience with a OBGYN was a guy, and oh my god, like he was the worst man I have ever been to. I don't care, like he's all and
The shout out, the actress is crazy.
The car said, wow. No, because
that doesn't wait. How many OBs is on?
My whole thing with that was like it's such an intimate thing to go through, and I feel like myself as a young woman, also in a Caribbean house, the way I grew up in church, like we didn't have those conversations. Like the birds and the beasts, like I didn't get that. Okay,
I didn't get that
this
either.
is what happened to me, and I'm sorry, Mom. This is what you did. So if you watch an episode, you watch an episode. But like my mother, she called me in her room and we sat on her bed. And she made me read this book to her out loud. And the book was like just the parts and what the parts do. And it's just like, I already knew this, shorty. But like, that's a fact. No, it was, she's like, I was like, what, maybe like 8, 9, 10, I don't know, somewhere in that realm. Somewhere in that realm, because I didn't even get my period yet, and I got my period late. But like, we had that whole conversation, and that was kind of it. Like I didn't have any knowledge of like what going to the OBGYN would be like, or any of that stuff. And then the circumstances under which I went to the OBGYN for the first time were not like the best for me. Both like that experience, but also the familial dynamic happening around that time. So it wasn't like you're gonna go inside and this is what's gonna happen and this is how it was just like we're going and yeah. Do you want me to come inside with you? No. Okay. And that's kind of just how like the whole thing happened. So then to now have this man, mad rough, I'm sorry, he's one of y'all Haitian people, but like, it was very, I'm not talking to people, I'm talking about my experience. It was this old Haitian man who laid me on the table, stuck some stuff inside of me, and it was like, okay, we're done. And I was like, bro. I know. I honestly think this is. I'm not trying to be annoying, but like I was traumatized.
That sounds very traumatic.
And I didn't go to GYN for I don't know, maybe like another 2 years or so after that.
Trauma.
That's when I found like my GYN, and then she just left it. We were on the phone the other day, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not coming back. You can find another one." I'm like, "Shorty, what?" We went through my.
She went.
Yeah.
She switched. She's got having babies, and then she moved, and like this whole thing. It's very selfish of me, but like my whole point in saying that is like I just literally last week had to book an appointment with another GYN, and first of all, Shorty had me on hold for like 20 minutes just trying to find another GYN within the specifications that I wanted, which were literally black and female. Damn. Like they were like she was like the person I have is a midwife. She's like, oh, we have this midwife that's gonna see you. She's like the only one available in the next 5 months. Wow. That's ridiculous to me. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
She's like, you're not pregnant, right? I'm like, no. It's like, okay, but like that's a problem. Like that entire experience that I just shared is a problem from beginning to end. Yes. And I feel like we don't have enough knowledge on how those experiences happen. We don't have enough support in going through those experiences. And then now, because of that, you guys on the back end now have to deal with a patient like me. Like I don't tell anybody anything. Like I am the epitome of not helping students learn. Because when I do go to the GYN, I'm not talking to none of y'all. Where's my doctor? Any problems? Nope. My doctor come in. All right. So this is because it's just an experience that I've never really truly enjoyed up until recently, and then now having to go through it again, it's like, and then I have to. Now you asking me questions. It's in the chart, bro. Look in the file. I don't want to talk about it. Just do what you have to do. Get in, get out. Let's move on.
But then that's like when we talk about the healthcare issues that we brought up, like what looks bad on it. Then first, like you said, it should not be that hard for you to figure out. getting a new GY, and I've also had that issue as a medical student. I think it's even more frustrating knowing that, like, I'm trying to do this and I need a doctor, like, what's going on? And then also, like you said, looking in your chart, I don't know if you could attest to this, because I looked in the chart and things that were supposed to be in the chart, not in the chart. So now I gotta come inside and ask you questions that you don't want to answer again, but I have to ask you because I need to know, and somebody's gonna be looking at me like, did you get the information? And honestly, I want to get the information too, because if I need to write up a history about you and understanding what's going on for you, I have to get that information. So guess what? We gonna talk. Maybe not as a student, and we can agree, like, you know, what we've done as students, and I will give our little secret out there, but I just be like, yeah, I'm a part of the internal medicine team, and Dr. Such and Such needs me to get this information. I'm not coming in saying like, oh, I'm a student or I'm just helping out. No, because then you're gonna tell me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still like the worst patient for that. And like now that like, okay, so for those of you who don't know, Kristen is my sister. Like now that I have a sister in the field, I try to care a little bit more. I feel like because I'm a person, I feel like they're gonna be my sister. But I'm not gonna lie, I went to the doctor before I came here today, and every person that asked me what was wrong up until my doctor walked in the room got the same answer. I'm fine. I just want to see him before I leave.
The cycle is not getting better, you know.
Yeah.
But in the same breath of saying like you can't find the doctor that you need.
Yeah.
When you guys when you were in school and when you're on your junior school, do you guys seek out professors or I guess doctors that you learn from or nurses that you learn from that look like you to help you in that situation to interact with people that you want to help in these marginalized communities? Or
I mean,
is that a resource? Like, do you find representation in that sense?
So what I would say with teaching wise, which is weird, right? Because I still haven't really figured out the dynamic of that, because I'm taught by doctors, some who are PhD doctors, but others who are MD doctors. So I kind of wonder, like, when did they stop practicing and start teaching? But like my female repro pathology teacher was a Black doctor. So it was very, like, she was very adamant about, like, let's say we're looking at like the baby giving birth on like the pictorial presentation of that. She was like, yeah, I never saw a Black baby. Have you like looked at a diagram? We've never seen a Black baby. So she put that on her slides. So we have that going on. And I think my school has tried to do a little bit of like connecting current students to our graduates that are practicing now. But to say like it's a resource, I think too, people kind of, we don't talk about like the struggle of what med school looks like. So I think a lot of people tend not to put themselves in a position to help right away. Like if you reach out, you might find the help, or if they're like very adamant about placing their platform as somebody who wants to lead the way. But it's really not like as easily accessible as you need to know. Just like in every other career, it's like you got to know somebody to know somebody. So I think that, at least for me, that's my experience.
Big gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Damn.
Or you only seeing the successes, or you're only seeing like the progression of things as they look good. And that's not everybody's, experience. So I think it's hard to connect with mentors. Like I might connect with a mentor who's a doctor, but they might not have experienced, let's say the trials that I've experienced during my medical school career. So it's hard to still relate.
That's crazy.
For me, my professors wise, they were all white. I'm not gonna lie to you, they were all white. My clinical instructors, I had more Black women, but being that I was in a school where like everything is so quick paced, there wasn't really more connecting. It was just more like, I'm trying to do what I gotta do to help your pass, and that's it. Literally. But there was no connecting, nothing. No trying to get to know the student, get to know the professor, nothing. It was just.
I will add, and you just reminded me, for my school, what they did do our first semester is that they grouped us into some like smaller groups, and we had a professor on campus who was like our mentor. Like you had to meet with them kind of frequently to see how things were going. And like you too, I mean, I had a few Black professors, but like when I say few, like I could probably count it on one hand. But I also do attend technically a Caribbean medical school. So you imagine like interacting with the Caribbean community, but learning from people who don't, look like the people that you're helping. I was lucky enough to definitely have like that mentor who was a Black like woman, and I think that was helpful for me because I felt like she was like my fairy godmother on campus. On campus, like I could run to her and say, "Hey, girl, I'm struggling. Like, what do I do?" You know. So we had some balance, but I had also a colleague who had another Black mentor, and her response with her, she's just like, you know, if you're failing, then maybe this is not for you. Yeah. She was not supportive. Like, she was not supportive. So I feel like you can run into two extremes depending on what that looks like, even within your own community, which sucks.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Y'all are both talking about like struggle, and it's like the people before y'all went through that same struggle, but it's like hard to find someone who's willing to help y'all get through that.
There's not enough people in the field itself for that amount of change to like happen. Like you need a lot of heads to change such a deeply rooted racist field in this country. So like it's almost, it's very frustrating. I would think that like being in that space and not being able to like shake the ground and move it, that's very difficult. But you need so many more people to do that.
But you know what's also crazy is like I feel like every other Black mom I know is a nurse. Like I know mad Black women who are nurses, so it's like hearing that there's still problems, and even like in my own experience still experiencing problems. Like y'all are my neighbors, but you're not in my hospital, so like where are y'all at?
Right. But then also too, like the power dynamic, the power structure, I might be wrong, and I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but we have nurses around us, and we love nurses. Nurses are amazing, but they still have to operate within, like what Crystal was saying, like a bigger dynamic than them. Yeah. So very well, Tansy could be down like 2 doors down, but you may still never see her or interact with her because of that. Or she could be pushing and fighting, or she want to push and fight. She still has to answer to people higher than her who can still be like, yeah, I know this is what we're doing.
And in the same breath, we know so many nurses, we know some know of so many doctors in our own communities that is tough for me. Like in the same way, like it's hard for them to walk in and shake the ground. And in a situation where like 2 years ago with COVID, when they are the workforce that we needed, and bro, they're highly undervalued. I feel like, especially on that side and also on the other side too, where they're undervalued and we are overlooked on the patient side.
I guess for me, like when we have this conversation, where I go to is, it's gonna sound a little pessimistic, but I'm also kind of a pragmatic person, so sometimes I sound pessimistic. You guys are in the field, and I love it. We trying to make change in the field, but as we have also acknowledged, it's very hard to make those changes in the field. So how are we making changes outside the field while still being in the field? For example, a lot of people in my church are nurses and doctors, and yet I feel like we have yet to have a women's health group in my church. Agreed. So of course, like for example, Erica could become a nurse practitioner, run the block, traveling, killing it, and still not be able to make the same progress in my head in the building as she would if she sat down and had the conversations with us, so now we can advocate for ourselves when we go in those buildings to a certain extent. Like I know it's not a perfect science, but I do feel like I have a problem with the lack of knowledge that I have about my own body and how I go into certain dynamics. And I feel like loading that on top of my background and my culture, I feel very blind a lot of the times going into those spaces, and sometimes I also don't necessarily feel comfortable having those conversations with people who are right next to me because of the other factors that come into it. So how can we as a community do better that way? Like how do we go about instilling those changes? I don't know if that's an actual question or just like a food for thought kind of thing, but I think that's where I kind of think when it goes.
But I think I'm not in the industry. I'm not in the medical stuff.
I think we could take it from both. That's a question for both the professional side and like the patient side.
Yeah. So, but I was saying like, I feel like what we were saying before. I feel like you guys are so busy. You guys are doing 12-hour shifts.
That too,
bro.
Always tired.
And I don't think you want
24.
I mean, you may have the heart to give to your community, but then where's the physical
means to do that?
Physically tired to be like, okay, now I have to go do this. let's workshop about when we go to the doctor, we're gonna say no to this, and yes to this, and yes to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, make sure your child is taking this vitamin, this, so make sure when they go over there and they say, hey, we're gonna inject this in your IV, be like, hey, no, I don't want that, or can we do this, or can I ask you about this? Because I know my mom, she be God forbid we ever have to go to the hospital, she'd be on her phone researching every single word that the doctor be saying and turn this up, or calling your mom. This is my cousin. Yeah. Calling your mom and say, hey. They told second time doing that. They say, hey, they said they're gonna give so and so this. Is this okay? Have you heard of this? What effects does it have? Because they about to come in and do it. Like I feel like you guys don't have the time and energy.
Okay, so what I would say is that it kind of looks, I think, different from the outside, and I would hope that some other professionals would agree with me, where we look at it and it's like kind of extending, like work becomes something you love. Like you're not working because you love it, right? Gotcha. So if I can definitely go to work and do my job, but I can do something fun for my community outside of that, it still looks like I have education that I can give to somebody else, but not necessarily working, right? So I think I do desire to do those things in our community. And if you look at some, I would say, newer age doctors that y'all can follow. I follow doctors on Instagram and that kind of stuff. Like they're transitioning into using like social media and these platforms to educate in a fun way and to really build their like, personal platform outside of the hospital. So I think it's definitely doable. When we go back to what we were talking about before, as far as like the power play and like not really having, I guess, someone there to show us the dynamic or to change what it looks like. I would say that a lot of us, especially as Black women, even Black men in the field, you guys can probably relate to this even in your professional careers. It's like you kind of have to be the best, and people are so focused on, as a Black person, you only here maybe because you got in on a quota or this kind of thing, and so you have to look at it from like people are working so hard to just make it that they kind of forget about the person next to you in a way. So I think we have to like network a lot more, but we kind of have to hold on to we belong here, and so don't like go into too much of a tunnel vision. Like bring people along with you. So that's my experience. Because some of the doctors that I encourage, I'm like, she's so phenomenal. Like my teacher's so phenomenal. All these accolades, and your attitude is just like it's just me. But I would prefer for it to be, the group, it's the group effort. But because of the history of what medicine looks like, as a Black woman, you looking at me like I don't belong here. Even my peers, we in a study group, and I came in and I wasn't like somebody who signed up with them for the study group. They're looking at me like, why is she here? So it's like you had to prove yourself and still learn and still help your community. It's so much pressure.
Too much. Yeah. It's not the same journey. I don't think I can relate as much to you because you're in a PWI. I'm at an HBCU.
That's very true.
Everybody's Black and everybody wants everybody to rise up with them.
Yeah.
From orientation week, it was off rip. You're the person next to you struggling, you pick up and help them. Right. But at PWIs, it's completely different. And like the law sector already is a predominantly white.
It's disgusting.
Like 2% are Black lawyers, and it's insane. It's insanely underrepresented because Black people are the ones that end up in situations where they need lawyers even more. And those lawyers outside are not taught how to approach different cultures, approach people from different races. You're not taught this in school, but it's a difference in my experience and your experience, and I think you should talk about that. But like, we don't have that problem in my school. It's because it's everybody's on the same, let's all climb together. It's a shared burden, and
I will say that I can say that on my student body was definitely like that. So like, okay, if it's 15 Black students, we all helping the Black students. The Black students that came before us, they just like, hey girl, you need the notes, you need this. Like we make sure we can go, and everybody goes together. But it's still very much with medicine. It's to a certain point you can go with people. Like so you do your studies your first 2 years, but it's like once you start taking like board exams and things like yourself, it's about you. Like it's not it's not a group effort at this point. So and I think that is where a lot of doctors may come in later on is that they kind of struggle with helping the students in the beginning process, but they'll say like later on, like, yeah, call me when you're in clinicals or call me when you're in residency. And sometimes I feel like you need more of that.
I need you when I'm taking the board. I can't get clinical if I don't have the board.
Answer me now.
Yeah, like I've literally had doctors tell me in the office, like my own doctor's just like, oh, I'm getting ready to take step 1, and they're like, oh, step 1, call me step 2. Like, we all have a trauma attached to our first board exam that nobody wants to deal with.
It's the thing with I feel like it's not only in a medical industry.
Yeah,
it's
across
like,
the board.
Across the board was like, if you know you struggle with this, why not help the other person? Because you know they're gonna struggle with it too.
It's your motive in entering that career.
But you don't need to have that battle wound for you to be the doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to go through this small window for you to be. Oh, she got it out the mud. She's a real doctor.
Right.
Oh, I got some help. Man, I'm still gonna be a real doctor, bro.
So what's the fun in people's eyes in sharing that experience with anybody else?
Because when she need a doctor, she don't want to talk to
but it's not about
the doctors. She don't need to be spending 2 hours on the phone looking for a female doctor. She don't need to just write papers about how mothers is dying. You don't need to.
It's not about other people. It's about me. Yeah. It's about what
I'm so damn selfish. That's the problem, bro. And then when I complain,
but like they were saying, it's not even like I went into this intended like. Nobody, let me not say that. Majority of people go in with the best of intentions, and then life happens. And I said majority.
I don't even think majority.
Okay, some people. Let's say at least 40%. You could say 40% go in with the good intentions, and life happens and things happen, and it's very similar to our like episode, like 2 episodes ago, where it's like you were trained to be this way to make it through, and now that you made it through, you still acting that way, and now you have to break down and unlearn everything that you just learned or you just perfected because you've really been learning it the entire time to now try to help somebody. And by the time you did that, the person you was trying to help is a doctor.
But that's crazy because it's like I would assume so that it's so much in your face that it would push you to be like, yo, I know this black girl is struggling, and I know this black man is struggling. Let me just
Well, my black doctor told me.
Help you.
I said, yeah, I'm struggling with this test. And he was just like, oh, well, that was not my experience. And it was not. He's just like, I just did good. And I was just like, wow. Like, okay, so you were
all their names.
But no.
I'm not going to say the names. No, hold on real quick, though. I'm not going to say the names. But, like, that's part of the problem, too. Because we just letting them ride. And like, we're joking about it, but I'm being so serious. Because how can I have a traumatic experience? Tell y'all I had a traumatic experience and then let you go to the doctor that justifies me.
As long as seniority, that's not gonna work. They don't care.
They don't care.
They really don't care.
And that's the
I'm gonna tell everybody so you don't go to them.
But they still gonna get patient. Yeah. The insurance is still gonna hold them down. And all of that. This is crazy to me, but
we'll put their names in the description.
Well,
I don't know about that.
I would probably tell you no, but
oh damn.
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, women's healthcare sucks. Sorry.
It's not just women's health; it's all healthcare
in general.
But we're trying our best as the catalyst to change it.
Right.
But we cannot do it alone. We cannot.
And you would think schools would teach, like, schools that are like physically placed in like minority areas. Like, I know my friend goes to, I don't know if I should name names or not, but is in the middle of North Philly, which is a very rundown neighborhood. A lot of things happen over there. So you would think that they would teach, and a lot of people come in with a lot of teeth issues. Like, their clinic is crowded consistently, and the clinic is supposed to serve the community. They don't have any classes that teach people how to interact with the community they're serving. So you have a class that's 75% white and then 10% black, and like the Asian population takes up the rest. And it's, I think, 10 black students in her one class, and the rest are white people. And it's insane how much they hear people during the day, like from other clinics, like be like, oh, that patient was disgusting. Oh, that patient was this. Oh, I didn't understand a single thing he said. Oh, this and this and that. You like the school itself. See.
Sarah's gonna curse that out. She got some stuff to say in the comments after.
So Sarah, what I would say to you though is that as much as you put those things in place, it still starts with the core of the person who's doing the work, right? So I think a lot of time, listen, I'm not disagreeing because yes, like I said before, I attend technically a Caribbean medical school. So the community that we were learning from and serving looked like me. And I've also experienced students being in the position where they're in the sessions, we have sessions that teach us how to cater to that community, right? And they say all the right things to get the grade. And then you get outside and you still hear the same thing, like, oh, that was disgusting, or like, oh, I could only imagine what disease they have, or the bias going in, like, you think that this person has this, like we're presenting diagnosis to the teacher and they bring up something and you're just like, but where did you get that from? But it's just their own internal bias. So yes, I do agree with you, because even when it came down to like, our black community being affected during the pandemic, like all the deaths and that kind of stuff, you really start to see the character of the people that you're going to school with. Like I had somebody post on the internet, like, Black lives do not matter to me. Like, what does that like, why are we talking about this? And
Drop their name.
and literally other students saying like, that's crazy, because we are literally sitting in a session with students as a medical student learning from Black people. We have sessions, we do simulation sessions in my school where I do a whole patient interaction. They hire people from the community to come in and be like our mock patients, where we learn like how to take their history and physical exam, all of that. So you're touching these people, you're interacting with these people, they're talking to you, and you can post that online. So honestly, we have it in place, and we have doctors that want to push that. But at the end of the day, it's the core of the reality is it's the core of the individual. And yes, a lot of people are not going into it for the right reasons, or only because they want to serve their community, or only because they want money.
I've seen a lot of racist.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of racists. I've seen a lot, especially the older generation. A lot of them are just in it for the money. They don't care. Like I've seen,
they did their time.
Nurses tell me like, they're gonna die anyways. I'm just like, what does that even mean? Like, I could just be picturing, like, I could imagine, like, my grandmother, even though they have passed away, but even at that time, they're lying in the bed, they suffering. It's like,
and then there's outside,
they're gonna die anyways. They don't get their pain medication.
So now you fight them, right?
Exactly. Like,
so now if I report them to the board, I can't do that?
You can't.
You should. I give it a name that person.
Right. No, and I mean that person. I mean, I spoke about that person. That person was definitely evaluated by our schools, committee to figure out why you're here, because that's crazy for you to publicly make that statement. And it's even worse in private, but like to publicly make it like you're bold, So I don't know. I think that it's true. There are people, and the people you learn from, even the people teaching me. I might think that this doctor or this professor is just so open because they teach this, and this, but you walk past me straight in the hallway and you don't say good morning as your student after I greeted you. So you have intrinsic bias. We all have intrinsic biases, but racism is deep in the system and of medicine, healthcare. It is also a very deep-rooted issue. Racism is there.
It sounds like we just need to start over.
No, but I don't think we can start over, and then we can't start over, because I also want to talk about how I'll talk about Black people, because that's what I'm familiar with, is we view healthcare as a luxury. So we don't seek out help. I can speak for Caribbean parents. They rather boil a tea. They rather go to their local, I don't know, person who knows which herbs is good for what, their holistic doctor in their community, than to go to the doctor. They rather go on WhatsApp, for real. What tea do I need to boil? Or for even when you said right, I was laughing because of it rhymes, but I was also thinking about no, listen, it's going somewhere. Stick with me. Right? Because there's a lot of Black people that do not go to the dentist because they see that as a luxury. And once you can, I was reading where this thing was, if you can see the wealth of a person by their teeth, right? People who go to the dentist are more likely from a better wealthier community where they can afford dental care. Like, you have mad cavities in your teeth, but you don't have the insurance or whatever to go to the dentist.
And let's talk about what the insurance part of it is.
That's
It's the whole other thing. Dental health care, insurance, they don't accept everything.
No, they don't.
So, yeah.
Bro, we can start over where it's like we have representation from our communities who's going to work in these marginalized communities, but it's also like going back to the education part of it, where it's like, you need to go to the doctor. When's the last time you had an annual physical?
You need to trust your doctors, but that's a whole nother conversation. I know that
even me, I don't even know my blood type. I feel like that's a problem.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
I definitely don't know mine.
Mine is B positive.
I am
O positive, baby. Everybody but the negative. Stay away from me.
But that whole education on the patient side, like we talk about, you gotta go and learn that in the doctor. And the patient side.
Yeah, they don't tell you.
On the patient side, you can't, like, if the student or the doctor comes into the room and they ask me about your history.
It's when they ask me about my blood type.
How you gonna give your history if you don't know it?
If you don't know it, that's true.
But I guess so. I think when I meant start over too, I mean more so for us as we bring in more people into this world, if that's what we desire for ourselves. I know some of us just want to be a cute auntie, but as we bring in more people into the world, but also as we interact with people, I think it's our job now to kind of ensure that the little education we have, that we pass it on. So that, like, for example, my experience does not get replicated with other people. Like, I should be able to sit down and tell the people around me, this is what it's going to be like when you go to the GYN. They should also feel comfortable enough to have those conversations with me. So I can be like, yeah, girl, that's normal. You want to be on the phone with me? We could be on the phone with, hello, doctor, who are you? Because I think that's the part that's missing too. Or some of us, we can't force our parents to go to the doctor, but we gonna force our husbands to go get everything checked. And the kids coming after us, those are I'm just saying for us now, we have to start to do our part to kind of implement these things and break the cycle in the little ways that we can. But we also, in this as well, in all our topics, you have to be receptive to hearing other things too, because I feel like I've been blessed to have a sister who kind of just told me a whole bunch of stuff. And I've also been around other people who started their own feminine care lines and all of this. So we having the conversations about all the yonis, the cups, the I know everything that go up there, and it's crazy, right? And like sometimes, especially with like a lot of my friends, like the cultures that we come from, those are very guarded, hush things. And I can also say from my experiences, like there have been times where I'm sharing my experience with some people close to me, and I almost felt like shamed in a way for like, bro, I'm just trying to give you another option. I'm not saying you have to use it, but I'm trying to let you know there are more than pads out there and like all these other things happening. So I feel like we need to be intentional about those conversations too, and going into them and being receptive when you hear things that you don't know. And also too, because our guy friends my guy friends call me all the time asking me questions. Because they need to know too.
For what?
Bro, they be asking.
For what?
About it.
And I agree with you, because it's just like you look at what we can only give information based on what we know. So yes, we give our parents and the communities grace because yes, they only knew certain things, but like when we have learned, new things, they're not necessarily open to. Yes, Danae was talking about the menstrual cup or whatever it might be that you use that's not a pad and not a tampon. Like I remember the first time I was cleaning that in the kitchen, my mom's like, "What is that? And why you got that in here?" And I'm just like, technically this is cleaner than everything inside here, and this is what it is. But they just didn't have that information. So I think we do have a duty to help each other along. Like, I told my sister, she probably didn't want to know, but she sure loves what she uses now and it works for her. And there's so many different options. And, if you don't know, it is a taboo topic too. When sometimes we have it with our own peers, like we're talking to girls and we're just like, hey, I don't know, like we're walking on eggshells, but our body is important and we should talk about it. And we should help each other.
I stopped whispering a while ago. Like, I'm not hiding that shit.
No, shorty. I don't really.
And then when I would answer in the like a normal volume, she'd be like, "Shh." Oh, what do you mean?
Yeah. And there's a lot of cultural shame and stuff around different parts of healthcare that we need to like debunk and talk about.
Mm-hmm. But also too, I feel like you can't really blame them all the way. I feel like also too, they're also traumatized. They have their own experience in themselves. where they're like, I don't want to go back.
There's a lot of projection in
Yeah.
that too.
Because a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses, they see you and they assume. Or they're quick to tell you, oh, the reason why you're overweight because you eat too much. That might not even be the reason.
Right.
Because you see me big, not just tell me I'm stupid.
Right.
What if I got another issue?
No.
Now what?
Or to see you as a check to bank
Yes.
too. Like they be prescribing things that you don't need.
Yes.
All of
or
that
they
stuff.
don't do certain things for you just so you can get worse and come back.
Yeah, exactly.
The
You're a
hospital
check.
is one of the biggest businesses in
Yeah.
America.
Absolutely.
In America.
In America.
Yeah.
Especially that's free as in Finland.
It's not America. It's not America.
Not here.
They want you in that place.
That's stop judging me on this episode. Okay,
Don't
I'm
you
just
so.
being honest.
And shout out to like our nurses because I think like honestly one of the most the people you can learn the most from are your nurses. Literally. I mean, and hopefully they'll take some time to teach you some things. But but like if you have a question and you really want to know something, I would say ask your nurse. They really definitely they've been taught to kind of get close to patients early, even closer to patients than doctors. And I would say too, I have had to learn from doctors in one of my rotations from nurses. One of my rotations, I had to rotate or round with a nurse.
Oh wow.
So they get taught a lot more clinical stuff earlier on, like actually hands-on, like giving medication, that kind of stuff, much quicker than we actually do. We learn the foundations and the information, but the active part of it, they do a lot of that.
I have another stupid question. Another stupid question. So, okay, like in my head and from television, my only perception of nurses is like emergency room, right? So who?
Grey's Anatomy.
I know, but I'm asking for me, and I'm also asking for people.
on that show,
Bro, they're the best.
They're like everywhere.
Okay, but my thing is like who? So when you go to the doctor, who are like you go for a regular
The office.
When you go to the regular doctor's office for your annual physical, who are the nurses? It's not like y'all wear a badge saying nurse.
The one taking the blood.
They'll judge your
Okay,
blood.
is that it?
But then there's
They'll probably triage you, which would be like when you first come in and you do like your blood pressure and they take your weight and that.
Why don't y'all say? Well, y'all are gonna be different, but I literally went to the doctor before I came here. I don't. Why don't you just say hello? I'm Nurse Danae, and I would be triaged.
They're supposed to.
That's the problem. No, don't do that because I was the doctor today. I actually like my new doctor.
She gonna drop it in the comments.
That's my cool. That's my guy.
Drop in the comments. You don't drop the bad one, drop the good one.
My guy. I'll give y'all his information in the comments. That's my son.
Yeah,
But
no, they're supposed to.
little stuff like
A
that.
lot
How am I
of-
supposed to know who the nurses are?
I think our healthcare workers be getting tired.
They do.
And I think that they lose a lot of the like foundation that we're taught because literally the first thing you're taught to do is walk in and say, you know, hi, my name is, what's your name? You know, or maybe they're coming to you and confirming your name because that's normally what happens in the doctor's office.
I think they lose the humanity of it because I guess how long they've been in there, the system sucks, and I feel like they're rushing. Bro, the first time they're rushing to get to the next patient,
Yeah.
so they don't even have time to say hi, how are you? Like the first time I went to the dermatologist's office, right? The nurse and the doctor came in the room with a neck back. I said, oh, wait a minute. No. Hold on. First of all, hi. Let's breathe. And then I took my phone with my questions. I had some questions for you.
Rush me.
Yeah, because I feel like they want to get in and out, in and out, in and out. But then you're gonna charge me the full copay. No, wait a minute.
So what I would say is that you did what we expect a patient to do. You have autonomy over your health care, so you are allowed to say hi. Yeah, no. If it's supposed to be 17 minutes that I have with you, we're gonna take the 17 minutes.
But you see, a lot of them don't like that.
And they don't like
they
that.
don't like it.
But at the end of the day, the patient is always right. And y'all are right. You know, even when we think that we're more right, you are right. And so you have that right to do that. But like you said, everybody has to take that responsibility as your patient too now. Because sometimes you leave a doctor and you're telling me, oh, I had this horrible experience, but you never said anything, so nobody can't change it. And complain.
Report to the board.
Yo, one thing my mama did well. That didn't complain. I don't think there was one time we went to the pediatrician and mom was like, after these doctor, I have to talk to you. She talked about the nurse, the person at the front desk, how did this. What?
And she already told the person at the front desk
About
that if
themselves.
you can't have a good attitude,
Don't work with me.
you shouldn't be in the front. Go file some papers.
Oh
Oh my god.
So you have to like speak up for yourself too. That's happened to me as a medical student. I went to my doctor and I told him like, hey, I'm relatively healthy, you know. There's nothing for him. I'm going for a checkup, like a regular physical that I need for school. I needed him to fill out paperwork for me. He like, oh, you know, typically I don't do this in the office. I was just like, well, you don't have nothing else to do today, so my 17 minutes is what we're gonna do. We're gonna fill out the forms together. So he looked at me like, he's like, is that student Kristen, is that what you telling patients? I'm like, no, but I, as a patient, I have a right today to have your attention. If your schedule being off the charts is not my business, don't care. And you, as a patient, need to be able to say like, yeah, doc, I understand you. You know, it's a little rough today. They might share how they're feeling. That's cute. My care is important, right?
Or
now.
You don't understand. It's not my job to
Yeah,
deal with
you
the
don't have to.
bottlenecks of your system. It's not though.
And don't let them rush because I think you have to be confident. You won't share when things are wrong.
But I think being confident is also knowing
That's received, yeah.
Not only is it received, but knowing what you're gonna ask or knowing what's going on,
yes.
right? Because some people they just wake up every morning, oh, this hurts. Okay, when did it start hurting? When it like you don't have the education to properly explain what you need for.
You don't technically have to have that because you're going in, and a good doctor or a good nurse should be asking you those questions. You tell me, if you tell me 15 things hurt, I say, okay, can we take it? What's the worst thing that we could deal with today? Like, you know, in a time frame kind of thing, right? But I'm going to ask you all those things. When did it start? When did it move? How does it feel? Did you do this yesterday? That's my job. That's not your job.
Yeah, but I think that's in the should. That's in the should be.
Well, we was taught that, so I'm gonna just go with. Thank you, my school. Y'all teaching me. I have
That's
not reached
A
it.
lot of doctors, they have them like other doctors or nurses as the patient. Because we know what we're supposed to
We know what's
ask.
supposed to happen.
So we coming off the rip like bang, 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 and you be like, whoa. Because you know what you're talking about. And
they can't come to you with no BS.
No,
Absolutely
they can't.
not.
They can't BS us. The amount of experiences I've had, and I'm not even an official nurse yet, where I have to go in, and if I don't come in that way, they're not going to do what they're supposed to do, which is, to me is crazy. Like, I'm just like, I shouldn't have to tell you this.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, it was like a couple of years ago, my dad got, he called me one day I was in school, and he was like, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to the hospital, which is very rare. My dad is Haitian, okay? It is very rare for this man to say, I am going to the hospital. Bro, it's very rare for this man to say, I am going to the hospital. He said, I feel so bad, I have somebody call 911 for me to go to the hospital. I said, you know what, I'm coming, okay? Go in there. He went to Kings County. Sorry, I got it fixed. He went to Kings County. I told him, first of all, why'd you go there? He said, I wanted to go there.
That's a problem within itself.
Worst hospital. But anyways, he's in the emergency room. By that time I got there, he's 1 hour in. I go in, I'm like, hey, why you came here for? Started feeling dizzy, like I'm about to pass out and everything. I know personally he has high blood pressure. Okay? So now I'm like, okay, where's your nurse? What did they do for you? Oh, all they did was give me fluids. I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? I'm sorry. What is that supposed to do for you? Sorry. I'm like, what is that supposed to do to you? I'm like, okay, who's your nurse? She never gave me her name. I'm like, okay, can you point her out?
That'd be the next day.
I'm like, can you point her out?
It's a tall brown woman.
Right, it's a black woman. I'm like, well, can you point her out? She said, yeah, okay. Nurse finally comes in. I'm like, well, my dad's been here for like over an hour. What have you done for him? Oh, we're gonna do an EKG right now. I'm like, well, it's been like an hour. The EKG don't take that long. It's a machine. It's gonna put it on for you already. So I said, okay. Now she started to look at me, and she's kind of starting to see that I know what I'm talking about. She's like, okay, I'm coming right back. An hour later, she finally comes back.
Hour later?
Yes. Don't even want to know how long I've been in there. Hour later, she finally comes back, and she said, we're going to do the EKG. Does the EKG. What's the results? Oh, the doctor's going to read it. I was like, first of all, you should know how to read it. But okay, I'm going to give you grace. I'm going to give you grace. Hour comes back, showed me the EKG, and he said, okay, everything's fine. I'm like, can I see it? Okay, I gotta go get the copy. I said, Jesus Christ. Why don't you have it with you? Oh, most patients don't ask for the copy of the EKG. They just believe what we said. I was like, wow, okay.
Well, I know.
Like, what? I said, okay. Come back another hour. Okay, here's the EKG. Mind you, I read the EKG. My fault, I didn't look at the patient's name. Now she's like, okay, the doctor wants to prescribe this, that. Okay, cool. She stands there, starts scanning the wristband. It's not working. I'm like, well, why is it not working? Is it the machine? I don't know. What's the patient's name and date of birth? I'm giving the name. She goes, oh. I put the wrong wristband. I said, Jesus Christ. Look, can I see that EKG? She said, sure. Open it. It's not even his EKG. I said, you know what?
Transfer.
I was like, get somebody else. She said, excuse me? I said, get somebody else.
Get somebody else.
Yeah. You don't know what's going on. She said, no, I'm sorry. It's 2 EPs. I said, I really don't care. Like, get somebody else, because this is crazy to me.
No, it's like crazy going into situations where your parents, most of our parents are immigrants, all of us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where our immigrant parents, at least, like, I know you just said your dad was in the hospital. My dad got surgery last year, and it's interesting how some systems are so ready to take advantage of our parents because they don't understand certain things. Yeah. At least for like my parents, my mom and dad will call me at every office, every whatever. And like my sister's a lawyer right now, and I think my dad got into a situation with the police at some point last year. And the cops showed up, and the cops were like yelling at my dad and like screaming at him. And obviously my dad wears like a black tunic, like he doesn't look very, according to the minds of Americans, but the cops showed up, they're yelling at him, all of this stuff. He's terrified out of his mind. So my sister and I show up, and my sister shows up to the cop and starts talking to him in like, very confident way. What's your name? What are you talking to him for? What did he do wrong? All this stuff. Cool. Once she started doing that, they started getting the documents together. 3 of the cop cars left, all this stuff. So it's crazy how, like, even us as, like, daughters of immigrant parents, like, them being in those situations is terrifying to me. And, like,
imagine if you didn't go to the...
Exactly.
He would have been getting half-assed for everything.
But
and he wouldn't even know.
They would have false prescribed him everything.
Not to interject, but I think that's one of the main things. So my immigrant parent is a retired physician's assistant, so my dad. So he works in the emergency department. So I think for him, one of the things I've always seen my dad do is that anytime we went to the doctor, he never, like, even we go to the doctor at the hospital he works at, he never wore his badge. He never wore anything that identified him as a employee of the place that we're working in. Because I think for him, it just like, it came back to the core of like why I began to do this. It shouldn't take from you to know that I know what I'm doing for you to treat me the right way. And I think that is something that's been hard to see, because it's literally that all the time. People start to get lazy, or they're overwhelmed. But I think that it should come back to the point, like, why did you start to do this? And you need to serve people with the heart that you began. So yeah, my dad, and then when he had to pull the badge out, he pulled the badge out, because it's like, okay, now you're messing with my daughters, or you're messing with our healthcare. But it really sucked that that's where it would come from. That you have to now step in and be like, girl, you have the wrong EKG. Right. That's the man you giving my dad heart attack medication that could probably kill him.
Exactly.
So you have to be mindful of that, and I think that's what I think. Hope for me, I want to serve from the heart that I began with, even though the struggle is crazy, and even though the system is crazy.
That was beautiful. Serve with the heart that you begin with, or else Ashley's going to report you to the police. And I'm going to say what
If y'all want to know where his address is, I will tell you. DM me.
And I have the quote of the episode. It is, of all the forms of inequality, injustice, and health... Take a break. Of all the forms of inequality.
Waiting for that one.
All right, hold on.
I was ready to write it.
All right, start over now.
Go ahead. I just needed to take the proper pause. Okay.
What goes around comes around. My fault.
I'm sorry. That is comma. Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and inhumane, by Martin Luther King, Jr.
Luther. I just want to commend you guys for like even being black women in that field and like fighting through the stuff. And I know like your student body probably does not reflect. I mean, not, but like you reflect like. Oh, okay. Like does not reflect more of you, and your education doesn't reflect your people. Like that's not easy to go through. So I just like I commend y'all for like really going through that process and committing to it even.
Yeah. It's like fighting inequality while
inequality. Exactly. Like.
And with that, please don't forget to like, share, comment, share with one of your people, tag 2 people. You know,
or 3 or 4.
we're gonna take some time. Go ahead, do that.
We'll wait.
Hopefully we come back
We
for
waited.
like part 2 with medicine because it's a lot.
There was so much more we could talk about today.
Did you like? Did you share? Did you follow?
Let's go.